The Marlin was a good ship. An old workhorse, the kind that doesn't complain, just hums along, its reactor core thrumming a constant, low rhythm through the deck plates. I was hauling a shipment of medical isotopes, legit, all the paperwork in order from the Proxima Centauri hub out to the frontier colony on New Giza. It was a boring run. Just me, the hum of the ship, and the endless, star-flecked black of the void. I was about 3 hours out from the Kepler 186F shipping lane, a point where the gravity wells of a nearby gas giant, and its moon created a nice little pocket of distorted space. A perfect place for an ambush, but also a perfect place to shave a few hours off the trip if you knew how to ride the waves. The console in front of me was my whole world. A soft, blue glow from the nav screen, the rhythmic pulse of the proximity alert, and the quiet whisper of the ship's AI, Cass, keeping me company. Captain, Cass's synthetic voice was calm, almost melodic. I am detecting an anomalous mass shadow. It is small, but its energy signature is inconsistent with a natural object. My stomach did a little flip. Show me. A holographic grid bloomed to life over my console, the green lines sharp against the dark. There it was, a tiny blip, barely registering, hugging the edge of the gravity well. Any other pilot, especially a new one, might have missed it. They might have seen a piece of debris or a sensor ghost, but I'd been on this run long enough. I saw the economy of its position. It was using the gravity to mask its approach, sliding in from a vector that put the local star directly behind it, perfect for blinding any long-range optics. It wasn't random. "Pirate?" I asked, my voice a little tighter than I wanted. "The probability is high," Cass confirmed. "They are matching our velocity. They are not, however, attempting to hail us. They are not issuing a threat." That was the part that made my blood run cold. Pirates who don't threaten, they just act. They don't want your cargo, they want your ship. And they don't want to fight. They want a silent, clean job. 3. Build tension. The Marlin wasn't a warship. I had a point defense cannon that was more of a legal requirement than a weapon, and shields that could deflect a micrometeorite but would crumple like paper against a military-grade laser. My only option was to run, to try and use the gravity well to slingshot myself out of range, and hope I could make it to the shipping lane where a patrol might be. "Cass, plot an emergency burn. Maximum thrust. I want to use the gas giant's gravity to sling us towards the shipping lane." "Calculating. The maneuver is high risk, Captain. The stress on the port stabilizers will be significant." "I don't care, do it." The ship groaned as the engines kicked in, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate for the sudden burst of acceleration. I was thrown back into my seat, my vision tunneling. I watched the mass shadow on the screen. It didn't chase me. It didn't fire. It just stayed there holding its position. It was like it was waiting. That was the second thing that made this not a normal pirate. Their patience. They knew the gravity well better than I did. They knew I wouldn't risk the jump. Suddenly, a new contact appeared, closer. This one was different. It wasn't a small freighter. This one was sleek, angular, and utterly silent. It materialized from our port side as if it had simply stepped out of the shadows. It was a corvette, a purpose-built Predator. My proximity alarm didn't even have time to scream. A single line of text appeared on my comms display. "Cut your engines and you will not be harmed. This is a salvage operation." Salvage? My heart pounded against my ribs. That was the legal term for what they were doing. My ship was old. Its transponder was registered to a company that had gone bankrupt a decade ago. In the eyes of some frontier law, I was a squatter. They were going to take my ship and sell me to a mining colony as an indentured worker. And the cold, calm professionalism of the message told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a random act. This was a meticulously planned operation. 4. Climax. Desperation clawed at me. I had a survival pod, a tiny, cramped thing with no fuel, just an emergency beacon. It was a death sentence, but it was my only play. "Cass, prepare the pod for immediate launch." I'm going to blow the cargo bay seals. The shockwave might give us a second. Captain, the probability of survival is less than 12%. Then the 0% probability I have if they get me, I snapped back. Do it. My hand was on the emergency release, my thumb hovering over the button when something extraordinary happened. Another craft, a small, heavily modified tug, shot out from behind the gas giant's moon. It was moving impossibly fast, its own engines blazing a trail of fire. It wasn't heading for me. It was heading for the Corvette. A fierce, blinding light erupted on the screen. The Corvette's shields flared a brilliant blue as they were hit by a concentrated pulse of something, a weapon I couldn't even identify. The sleek, deadly ship shuddered, its engines sputtering. Then I got a new hail. This one was different. It was a simple audio feed, lo-fi, crackling with interference. "Hey, Marlin," a voice said, a woman's voice, rough and almost amused. "You look like you could use a little help, but we're gonna need a salvage fee." I stared at the screen, speechless. The tug had positioned itself between me and the Corvette, which was now listing, its weapons silent. The entire engagement had taken less than 30 seconds. It was a perfectly executed interdiction. Who are you?" I stammered. "Just a salvage crew," she chuckled. "And you're our salvage. Our contract is with the company that actually owns the registration on your ship. See, that Corvette you were dealing with. They were poaching on our territory. We take our salvage rights seriously, and we take our schedule seriously." I looked at the data. The owner of the Marlin's registration, a shell company from a system I'd never heard of, was indeed still active. I was just a contractor. I had no rights. My ship wasn't mine. My cargo wasn't mine. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice hollow. "You were gonna rob me, but because I'm on your turf, you're going to, protect me." "Protect you, take your ship and your cargo," she said, her tone deadly serious. "That's the deal. We'll drop you at the nearest port with a full payout for your time, minus our fees, of course. It's all in the contract. You just didn't know you signed it when you took this job." 5. Resolution. I was escorted to New Giza by my new partners. The crew was a mix of grizzled veterans and highly skilled engineers. They didn't loot and pillage. They audited and liquidated. They had a manifest, a contract, and a notary. The Corvette pirates. They were just an unorganized gang of thugs. My salvage crew was a corporation, a pirate corporation. The captain, a woman named Anya, met me on the landing pad. She was petite, with sharp eyes and a smile that didn't quite reach them. She handed me a cred chip. "Your fee," she said. "The cargo was delivered. The ship is ours now. A pleasure doing business." I just stood there speechless as she and her crew filed past me, already talking about their next contract. They weren't pirates in the way I'd imagined. They were an organization. They had a code. They had a structure. They had a damned HR department. 6. Ending line. I learned a valuable lesson out on the rim that day. It's not the guys with the guns you have to worry about. It's the ones with the lawyers and the perfectly written contracts. Because those ones, they never leave a trace. They just take it all. And they make you thank them for it. Part 2. The auction. Document title: The Truth About Pirate Crews, More Organized Than You Think. Author: Riatan, exoarchaeologist. File designation: Field Observation Log. Date: 2265-11-22. 1 Hook. My field of study is dead civilizations. I spend my time sifting through the ruins of empires that crumbled millennia ago. You'd think that would make me an expert on chaos. The opposite is true. The only thing you learn from studying the past is that nothing truly great was ever built on chaos. Which is why, when I found myself a prisoner of the Crimson Corsairs, I wasn't afraid of a beating. I was terrified I was about to be audited. 2 Setup. The dig site on the third moon of Captain Star was a miracle. We'd found a pre-singularity library, the data cores perfectly preserved in a vacuum-sealed vault. It was a find that would rewrite the history of human expansion. My team was euphoric. We were so focused on the relics of the past, we completely ignored the present. The Corsairs came in the night. There was no grand battle. Their landing craft set down as silently as falling leaves, and they moved through our camp with a ghost-like efficiency. They didn't shoot anyone. They just herded us together, confiscated our equipment, and locked us in the mess hall. It was over in less than 5 minutes. They had a job to do, and they did it. The next morning I was brought before their leader. I'd expected a scarred brute in a dirty jacket. Instead, I met a man named Tolan. He was tall, thin, and wore a perfectly pressed naval-style coat. He was reading a data slate, making notes with a stylus. "Dr. Tan," he said, looking up at me with a polite, almost bored expression. "An honor. Your work on the Zylosian language is quite respected. The data you found here is of immeasurable value." "Then you're a collector," I spat, my fear turning into anger. "A pirate with refined tastes." He actually laughed. "Good heavens, no. I'm an entrepreneur. The value of this data is not in its academic importance. It's in its market value." He gestured to a chair opposite his desk. "Please sit. We have a lot to discuss." 3. Build tension. Over the next few hours, I learned the terrifying truth about the Crimson Corsairs. They weren't pirates. They were the most organized, efficient corporation I had ever encountered. They ran the black market for pre-singularity artifacts like a legitimate auction house. Tolan explained it all to me, with a salesman's charm and an accountant's precision. "We have a database," he said, scrolling through his slate. "It's the most comprehensive list of high-value collectors and private museums in the known galaxy. We know who wants what. We know what they're willing to pay. We even know their shipping routes and security vulnerabilities, which gives us a unique advantage in the acquisition phase." "Acquisition," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "You mean theft?" "From a legal standpoint, yes," he agreed amiably. "But from a logistical standpoint, it's a very complex supply chain management problem. Most pirates are just thieves. They steal a ship, they don't know what to do with it, and they end up selling it for scrap. We're different. We're an intelligence-driven organization. We don't take what we can't sell, and we don't take anything that will attract unwanted attention." To prove his point, he showed me his operation. It was in the heart of the ship, a massive converted asteroid miner. It wasn't a den of iniquity. It was a hub of commerce. There were huge vaults filled with carefully cataloged artifacts. There were data analysts, logistics specialists, and security experts, all working with the professionalism of a planetary government. He brought me to a security feed, showing a large, clean hangar. A team was meticulously unpacking a shipment from a recent raid. They weren't smashing crates open. They were using sonic saws and thermal scanners to open them without damaging the contents. One of the men looked up at the camera and gave a thumbs up. "That's the inventory and valuation team," Tolan said proudly. "They'll have every item logged and evaluated in under an hour. Then it goes to the sales department." "And me," I asked, "what am I, a piece of inventory?" He shook his head, a flicker of genuine respect in his eyes. "No, Dr. Tan, you're a consultant. Your knowledge of the Zylosian language is essential to authenticate and decode the data. We're giving you a contract. We'll provide you with a comfortable living space, a salary, and a percentage of the profits. You help us maximize the value of our acquisitions." 4. Climax. A harsh alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed. Tolan's face didn't change, but a new, sharp alertness entered his eyes. "An unexpected audit," he said calmly. "It appears the local military decided to finally investigate the complaints about us." He turned to a communications panel. "All hands, code blue, we have a potential breach. Initiate protocol Sigma 7, full diagnostic." I expected panic, I expected chaos, but I saw the opposite. Every single person on that ship, from the kitchen staff to the combat teams, moved with a practiced, fluid grace. It was like watching a colony of ants respond to a threat. There was no shouting. There was no confusion. They knew exactly what to do. Hangar doors sealed. Data streams were purged. The valuable artifacts were moved into deep vaults. The ship's engine signature was altered, masking its true identity. The entire place, which had looked like a bustling research facility, transformed into a derelict freighter with a skeleton crew in less than 3 minutes. "We're going to stop you," I said, my voice trembling. "I'll testify. I'll tell them everything." Tolan smiled. "Testify to what, Dr. Tan? The ship you're on is a registered mining vessel with a full crew manifest. The military will find a hold full of ore, some minor radiation leaks, and a few harmless technical malfunctions. Your testimony will be the ravings of a hysterical academic with Stockholm Syndrome." A military cruiser appeared on the main view screen, its weapons trained on the ship. But they didn't fire. They hailed us. The voice was gruff and official. "Unidentified vessel, you are to prepare for a boarding party. You are suspected of harboring the pirate organization known as the Crimson Corsairs." Tolan strolled to the comms. His voice was a perfect imitation of a nervous, confused freighter captain. "Oh, thank goodness you're here. We've been having a lot of trouble with power fluctuations. Please feel free to come aboard. I can offer you some coffee." 5. Resolution. The boarding party was thorough. They searched every bulkhead, every crawlspace. They examined our ore, our log books, and our technical issues. They saw a ship that was old and broken. The real operation was hidden so deep in the rock of the asteroid that even a full-spectrum scan would have missed it. They left, satisfied they had found nothing. After they were gone, Tolan looked at me. "See, Dr. Tan, that's what happens when you have a good plan. Even the authorities can't stop you." The next day, my contract was finalized. I was no longer a prisoner. I was a member of the crew. The truth hit me then, harder than a plasma bolt ever could. The greatest threat to civilization wasn't anarchy. It wasn't violent rebellion. It was this: an organization so well-structured, so efficient, so utterly professional that it could operate in plain sight, laughing at the system designed to stop it. 6. Ending line. The truth about pirates is that the most dangerous ones aren't the ones who break the rules. They're the ones who understand the rules so well they can write their own and make everyone else follow them. Part 3. The Courier. You know what they say about pirates: drunk, violent, chaotic, a bunch of space-going yahoos with more firepower than brains. I've been couriering sensitive packages across the galaxy for 15 years. I've seen them in action. And I'm telling you, I'd rather fly blind into an asteroid field than deal with a well-run pirate crew. At least asteroids are predictable. Pirates, they run their ships like a Wall Street investment firm. They run everything by the book. Their book. And trust me, you're not going to like what's written in it. My ship, the Swift Messenger, is a sleek little number, all speed and stealth. I carry things that people pay a lot of money to have delivered without anyone knowing. The package this time was a small, encrypted data core. The pay was obscene. So I knew it was trouble, but trouble usually just means faster. I was skirting the edge of the Viridian Nebula, a place where the radiation makes long-range sensors almost useless. It's a courier's dream and a courier's nightmare. You can disappear in there, but so can everyone else. I saw them on my passive scanners first. A ghost. A faint, distorted energy pattern that was just a little too regular to be natural. I changed course, trying to lose them in the nebula's chaos. I dove into a thick molecular cloud, the ship groaning as the thick gas buffeted the hull. For a moment I thought I'd lost them. The ghost's signature vanished. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Then the lights in my cockpit flickered and died. I was plunged into total darkness for a terrifying second. When the emergency lights kicked in, I saw a ship on my screen. It had materialized from the molecular cloud, its hull black, its engines silent. It was less than a kilometer away. It was the shape of a predator, all sharp angles and no frills. A synthesized voice came over the comms, flat and cold. Vessel Swift Messenger. You are carrying cargo that is the property of the collective. Prepare to be boarded. You are being detained for a violation of the Viridian Trade Accords, Article 19. Article 19. My blood ran cold. That was the article about intellectual property rights. I was delivering a stolen data core. The collective, whoever they were, had the legal right to seize it. The ship that had me wasn't a military vessel. It was a civilian ship, a heavy corvette, but it was fitted with a military-grade interdiction field that had trapped me in a bubble of null space. I couldn't jump. I couldn't run. I was caught. They didn't just fly up and demand I surrender. They cut my comms, my power, my life support in a precise, methodical order. They were isolating me, one system at a time. "Attention, Swift Messenger," the voice said again. "You have 5 minutes to comply with the boarding procedure. Failure to comply will result in the termination of your contract and the forfeiture of your license." "They're going to kill me, aren't they?" I muttered to myself. "It is a distinct possibility, Elias," my ship's AI Rook said calmly. "However, they are following a standard corporate procedure. A lot of paperwork is involved. They may simply choose to detain you." Corporate procedure. They weren't just pirates. They were an enforcement arm of a syndicate. The syndicate of the collective was a mythical boogeyman for couriers like me. They were supposed to be a legend, a way to scare us into being careful, but they were real, and they had me. The boarding tube attached to my airlock with a soft, magnetic thud. I heard the sound of a powered cutter slicing through the lock. I was out of time. When the hatch opened, I expected a swarm of heavily armed, screaming pirates. Instead, 3 people walked in. They wore crisp black tactical suits, but they weren't wielding weapons. One was carrying a data slate. The second was holding a small, handheld scanner. The third, a tall woman with a shaved head and a piercing gaze, was the one in charge. "Elias Vance," she said, her voice having the same flat, synthesized quality as the earlier comms. "Courier, license 447 Beta. You have violated the Viridian Trade Accords, Article 19, by transporting proprietary intellectual property." "I didn't know what it was," I said, my voice shaking. "I was just delivering a package." "Your ignorance is not an excuse under the terms of your agreement," she said, looking at her data slate. "You signed a contract with the shipping company. That contract explicitly forbids the transport of stolen goods. You are in breach." She waved her hand, and the woman with the scanner approached me. She didn't threaten me. She simply scanned me head to toe. The device beeped. "Clean," the scanner woman said. "No personal data, no hidden weapons." "Good," the leader said. "This simplifies things." She handed me a document. "This is a waiver. By signing it, you transfer all rights to the cargo and accept the terms of the seizure. You also agree to a fine of 50,000 credits for your violation. Your ship will be released once the cargo is transferred and the fine is paid." I stared at the document. It was written in legalese, but it was incredibly clear. Pay the fine, lose the cargo, go home, no violence, no threats of death or enslavement, a fine. I looked up at her. "If you're pirates, why don't you just kill me and take the ship?" She looked at me, and for the first time something like pity flickered in her eyes. "Because that's inefficient. A dead courier is a liability. An audit and investigation. The death of a licensed courier attracts attention. Paying a fine and writing a violation into your record is clean. It's legal. It's business." She tapped her data slate. "My team is called Compliance and Logistics. We retrieve assets, we resolve violations, and we maintain the integrity of our clients' data streams. We don't kill. It creates a mess and a paper trail, and paperwork is the enemy of efficiency." I signed the waiver. They extracted the data core, transferred the fine from my account, and left. The whole process, from the time they appeared to the time they left my ship, took less than an hour. It was the most terrifyingly efficient operation I had ever witnessed. As they flew away, the woman's voice came over the comms one last time. I suggest you review your contractual obligations with your employer, Mr. Vance. The next time you carry stolen goods, the fine will be doubled, and we will confiscate your ship. We are very thorough. I just sat in my cockpit, my hands shaking. The entire experience was surreal. There was no robbery. There was no violence. It was a perfectly legal seizure of assets, enforced by a privately funded, highly trained paramilitary organization. People think piracy is about lawlessness. I learned that day that the most successful pirates aren't lawless at all. They've just built their own law, one that's so logical, so organized, so ruthlessly efficient that the real laws can't even touch them. They don't break the system. They've just built a better one.